Welcome to Exploring the Ozarks, where we tell the history and stories of locations, places, and people that make up the Ozarks. Here's Matt! John's just confused, like, what are we waving at? What's over there?
We accidentally found that part of our song one day. And
my brother told me
I
about
have to tell everybody, go ahead and sit down, everybody. Thank you.
Sit down.
You, though.
We're good.
Our studio audience.
It's our studio audience, our, 10,000 person audience. But hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Exploring the Ozarks. I'm Matt Graham. I'm here with my co-host and producer and magic man, David Carr, as well, which I don't ever really do that very often either, so I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's all about me.
It's okay.
Today, we have a super special guest that we're really excited about, and we get more excited about every one of our guests, it feels like. But
I feel like it's because we get better at it every time.
We just had some really kick-ass
and we get
guests,
some really cool guests.
Our guests
here,
are super cool for a group that just started this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had some super awesome people, so no pressure at all, John. But we have big plans for John. John's going to be a part of this show as long as.
This is John Farmer de la Torre.
That's what I'm getting ready to say.
Yeah.
Is John Farmer de la Torre, but John is going to be a big part of our show moving forward. He's got some really cool history of the Ozarks. We're going to get into a lot more of that, but you're a local Ozarkian. Let's just get that out of the way.
Ozarkian,
and John, thank you for being here, sir.
Yeah, no, it's great to be here, and hearing your show, it sounds great, and we're going to tell some great stories.
Love it.
I feel like you changed to a radio voice.
No, this is the real thing.
He goes a little softer, I think, And that's,
I heard a little bit of a growl in there. I was like, oh, yeah, it's radio voice here.
This is my natural growl.
I think it's the microphones, because my boss asked me that, too. I go walking in one week after my boss listened to the show, and he's like, you've got that voice that just sounds like you've been smoking.
That radio voice.
Smoking 20 cigarettes an hour for the last 5 years. I'm like, well, no, but
it is partially the board.
When I come down a little bit is when that starts to happen. Yes. So there's a sweet spot there without having to be cheesy like a lot of people in radio used to be.
That's the skill set of radio right there.
It is.
In a nutshell.
And that in addition to subliminal messaging underneath their voices. Buy this, buy that.
Right. Well, and that's why they get paid good money to do it.
Speaking of which, buy Springfield Studio One space.
Oh, yeah.
And, while we're at it, we're looking for sponsors as well. But by the way, this is you've tuned in to Exploring the Ozarks. I'm Matt Graham. That's David Carr. And we are here today at Springfield One Studio for this podcast.
Springfield Studio One.
Why do I do that?
We're just having too much fun.
Seems like it rolls off the tongue a little worse my way. Springfield Studio One for this podcast. Check them out. If you ever want to do your own podcast right here in this room, it's a really good room. We really like this room a lot.
I got a couple people actually coming in and using it. Whenever this comes out, it'll be like a month ago. But this next week,
perfect.
I have people coming and renting it out.
That's awesome. See,
so I'm starting to get more interest of people coming in and doing this.
And that's that's cool because this room is pretty cool. But
it is.
There's two other big rooms back there that you can do a small play. You can play music. You want to get your band in here and actually do a music video or something like that. You can even hire David to do that.
Springfield Improv's out of here.
Springfield Improv operates out of here. A&E has done some stuff out of here as well, which he never talks about.
I don't
John.
know.
And I'm like, why would you not talk about
because
that?
I'm under contract.
So let me talk about it.
So if you don't want to have to figure out all the technical stuff, you can come here and they'll figure it out for you.
There we go.
See,
and
John,
that is a big thing.
That's good.
Yeah.
But John used to be on the radio, if you couldn't tell everybody. But if
you on the radio with me, of all things. So we're really used to each other. Really used to razzing each other too.
That's true.
Your politics are dumb. No, I'm just joking.
We don't talk about politics on this show much.
That was our whole entire show, though. It was
that
Nick
time
Reed.
It was, yeah.
Oh, really?
Nick Reed. It was left, right, and in between. I was in between.
He's
I
in
remember
between.
that show.
Yeah,
that was us.
Yeah,
that was us.
Really?
That was us.
Man.
The reunion now.
Yeah.
We just need to get Nick Reed in here at some point.
Oh, don't get me talking on politics, man. Because my dad was a pastor. That's one thing he always told me not to talk about with people was religion, politics, or their money they make.
I feel like
well, we talk about religion a lot, Dad. I don't know. I see you doing it all the time.
That's a Charlie Brown quote, too. It's like, great pumpkin. Politics and religion.
There you go. But if you need a space to rent, there's also some really cool space in there. If you even wanted to shoot your own
well, I'm really excited about
sitcoms. You could even do that.
You really could if you wanted to.
It looks like it.
I'm excited too because John may be doing some film screens with us here, so helping run some of these things and some mixers we're going to start putting out there for people that want to help with film industry and creative industry.
That's right. There's a space between the Alamo and the Moxie for some interesting film.
Yes.
Films that people don't often get to watch. Yeah. Films that, for people who love film, would be happy to see them on a screen, a real screen, and get together with people.
Yeah. This is something that John used to do, which we'll talk more about
right?
Yeah,
as we get into it, but he used to actually sell this kind of thing.
Yeah, I worked for a movie studio. It was my first job in the movie business in New York City called Troma.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're the B movie, C movie, maybe the D movie.
There's room for all those movies, especially in Springfield. Springfield's pretty quirky. If none of you knew that,
Yeah.
but
Yes. So
but
Springfield Studio One, yes, we're have a lot of things coming up, a lot of things you can do here, and please support us.
There's a lot to do. If you want to just come take a look at it sometime, if you're interested, and you've had this dream
I
that
do
you
tours.
don't want to tell anybody about.
Yeah.
This is probably one of the most private places you could bring a band if you wanted to and do your thing and not have to worry about the stress of being at a bar or something or an open mic night or something. But this is the place to do it. It's super cool, and I think it's going to blow up on you. So good job doing all this hard work that you put in the last couple of years.
Yes, it's been years. Yes.
Today, though, we talk a lot about Patreon. We talk about our sponsors. We've got so many people that are starting to do this, wanting to do the sponsorships that we're still taking our time on that. And I hate to do
Patreon
that,
though,
but
anybody can join in and do that.
Patreon is great.
First shout out to Terry Carr and Jay Carr. They're their current Patreons.
The Cars.
The Cars, yeah,
Way to
my family.
be.
Yeah, I know. Great
Good
job,
band too.
It can be $1 a month or $10 a month or $1,000 or whatever it is.
You've already
right?
got this. No, currently it's set at 5, 10, and 25.
Okay.
Usually you don't see it much more than 50. I mean, most Patreon is meant to be small donations. It's not meant for businesses or big names.
And is it a monthly
obligation? If you want to
obligation?
do that, you can, but you go through different channels. It is a monthly obligation, so it comes out automatically every month. And then you get, access to exclusive content that we do on Patreon and other things. So you do get things out of doing this beyond just supporting us and our mission on bringing Ozark history.
Well, that's it.
Right,
the history of the Ozarks. It's a big area. There's a lot to cover. And
that's what Patreon's more about than anything else. Is you like what someone's producing, like us, and then you want to support them. So.
Yeah. And you because this isn't free, it is something that we did because we wanted to support everyone that we can in the Ozarks. And I mean, it goes back to all of our guests and all the nonprofits we're going to have and series that we have.
Well, there's so much more that we want to do too.
Oh, man.
And if we want to get all that done, then having supporters that, can help us expand. That's always awesome.
And every podcast I see has a Patreon section, so don't think it's just us. Okay?
Right.
And if you're not supporting your other favorite live streamers or YouTube or whatever, please go and support them. They would love it.
But support us first.
Please.
So John Farmer de la Torre.
Yeah.
Say that right?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. John Farmer, de la Torre.
De la Torre.
It's good. Yeah.
I like that. I told you I might roll R's.
Está bien, vamos a hablar en español.
Stop.
So it's what you call a double-barreled surname. You get one half from your dad and one half from your mom.
Oh, I love it.
That's how that works. It's true.
You do speak Spanish, though, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I speak Spanish as well, but we've had, I think, 2 other people that have come on that speak Spanish.
Eddie Gamucio is a Spanish teacher.
Yeah, he is. So it's like I just need to do an episode in Spanish, I guess.
But your little banter you had in Spanish was good, even though I had no clue what you were saying.
Yeah,
Wow.
it wasn't much.
I got the gist of it.
That's a hidden talent. I had no idea.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No, I did not.
Okay, yeah.
After all that time.
I lived in California for a
still
couple years,
discover
and
things.
I learned how to speak Spanish. So
makes sense. In Arizona, right? We were all over the place.
I was. Yeah.
But John, so tell us what you do now. First of all, let's start with that, and then let's get back into your whole story.
So for the last 4 years, I've been helping to lead one of Southern Missouri's largest charitable nonprofits, Catholic Charities of Southern Missouri, where I was their chief communications officer.
Wow.
And in that time, helped serve about 25,000 families with much needed assistance, rental assistance, utilities assistance, helped a lot of homeless individuals, a lot of homeless families.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the stories from that alone are pretty amazing, what people have gone through. But we helped a lot of people get through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And
man.
That was a big thing.
That was
a
a huge
thing in the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, and everywhere you go, it's homelessness is an issue, and you see things on social media, let's just say, and you see a lot of negativity toward the police that break up homeless camps and stuff like that. But
we get that here in Springfield too, unfortunately.
They just did it. It was a big one, and everybody was super upset about it. But there's 2 sides to every coin, and it's some people prefer to be homeless, but there's a lot of people that have a lot of heartache too. So
I'd love to get the people from Eden's Village on here at some point.
Oh, man.
Because that's an amazing project. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of money flowed in. As pandemic response cash, and a lot of that was ARPA and other federal funds.
Yeah.
But the general thinking, because there's so little affordable housing, is that it's better to keep people in their homes. So a lot of this was, is homelessness prevention. That's where a lot of that money went because, since the pandemic started, rents have just skyrocketed and there just isn't a whole lot of affordable housing.
Oh, and food's gone up and everything. So, I mean, I'm not going to go down a rabbit hole, but I think that I feel like this is a good topic to at least talk a little bit about, and that would be how, and not to go back to, Catholic Charity specifically. What I want to talk about is, since you were involved in that, you saw that for, a few years, what is their version of saying that they help homeless people to prevent them from being homeless, or people that aren't homeless but we're trying to prevent it? How do they go about that?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, if a person is evicted, then it's harder for them to get back into housing, number one. Yeah. And if there's no affordable housing, then they're likely to become homeless. So better that they stay where they're at.
Right.
And that wasn't just their thinking. That was the thinking of the U.S. Congress, which is why that money was appropriated. Right. And so, some people may not think that that's a great way to deal with that issue, but frankly, considering, that's the reality. It is.
It is.
So
it's probably cheaper, actually.
It's much cheaper.
It is. So, actually, there's studies that find that it's actually cheaper to house homeless people than to do everything else to try to get rid of them.
Yes.
You just give them a house and say, "Here you go," and help them get on their feet again. It's much better for society.
That's exactly right, and that's why Eden Village was.
That's why Eden Village is there. That's why you see a lot of tiny home communities pop up for homeless people and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, there's some states that don't have a homeless problem anymore because they just took care of it, like Utah.
Yeah, they just built a ton of tiny homes.
They just built it. Exactly.
Really?
That's right. Mm-hmm. They don't have a homeless problem.
Really?
They took care of it. Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
And
for the cost, I mean, we have about 500,000 homeless people living on the streets in the entire 50 states. And then you just spend $10,000 per person for a tiny home, you would cure the problem. It would just be done. And that would be a very cheap,
it would be.
way to solve it.
And a cleaner way to do it too. It's a community, I assume, and then you police that, and it's a lot.
And then
less
you spend
people
less
policing.
money trying to fix the issues. Like I was at lunch the other day with a guy that he manages parking lots and parking garages for the city.
Oh wow!
And he was talking about some of the homeless issues that happen, like where the defecating in places where they shouldn't be, or they're just setting up camp, or graffitiing stuff because they have to be there and live there, and they just end up.
It's kind of like their spot.
They end up doing stuff there that try to make it feel more like their home.
Right, but
so if you can give them an actual place to be, it'll be better for them and better for the community in general.
And I recently toured, Victory Mission. My dad actually helped found Victory Mission a long time ago and was handing out sandwiches out of the back of his trunk before they started Victory Mission. Then it kind of spiraled out of control on them, and it became a huge need. But I think the Springfield area, and the reason why we have 2,900 nonprofits in the Greene County area, it's like half the population works for some type of charity of some kind, whether it's a church or whatnot. But to me, it's something I think that Springfield kind of is ahead of the curve in a lot of areas than, say, I've been to Austin, Texas, where it's just atrocious. And I've also heard that LA, I don't know about LA, I've never been there, but I
I've
hear
seen their
stories.
homeless camps there. Yes.
And it's taking over like the major areas where there used to be very popular.
I lived in LA for 13 years. And
he knows even better than me because I just drove through one time.
And how long ago was that?
Well, that was a while back, but I've been there. I was there during the center of the pandemic, or the heavy hitting part of it. Yeah. And it was my neighborhood which was, an okay neighborhood right beneath that Hollywood sign there. Camps everywhere. Wow. I mean, it's Hollywood proper. It's normally it's all like, starlets and people going out for music shows.
Yeah.
It's like a disaster zone. Yeah. It's really, really amazing.
And I listened to Joe Rogan a lot, and that was why he moved out of there. And then it's almost like whenever they move to Texas, they start talking to all their buddies. Because they don't want to be out there alone. They're like, I just moved here, but I don't have any friends. So I'll get some friends, and they'll just move here, basically. So
it's unfortunate they just didn't help solve the problem.
And that's one thing he talks about a lot on that is there's ways to do it. You throw, you're throwing hundreds of billions of dollars at certain things that I'm not going to get involved with politics, but, like wars that aren't ours, but they do affect us and things like that, you threw that kind of money at a homeless problem, you would solve it overnight. Overnight.
I agree 100%. And the United States needs to focus more on actually helping
the people.
Well, this goes into a little bit of like the kind of work that I'm doing here in the Ozarks with documentaries.
Yes.
I mean, frankly,
good transition.
Let's dive into it because let's talk about first of all why do you do it? What kind of stories are we talking?
Well, I grew up in Mansfield, Missouri.
Yeah, about an hour from here.
Yeah, it's like about 35 miles or an hour driving east of here in Wright County. Yeah. And initially in Hartfield, Missouri, which is the county seat of Wright County, and is actually the current center of the United States, according to the U.S. Census. So,
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's if you weighed I don't know how they have somebody doing this, but you balance the entire population on a plane, that would be the center of the country.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway,
Hartville, huh?
Yeah.
You got to go there, man.
population 609. Well, for the next 10 years, it is the center of the American universe, right? And but also, what to me was very interesting growing up there, because from there I went to Mansfield, and from Mansfield I went to Boston. I got a scholarship to go to school in Boston, and then
Very cool.
and then Washington D.C. at Georgetown, which is sort of the Harvard of politics.
Yeah, and that was international relations,
Bill,
wasn't it?
Bill
Yeah.
Clinton went there. The current king of Spain. It's like we're only like 200 students.
Wow.
I mean, 233 or whatever. It's a very, very small school. Most of the students are legacy admissions. They go there because their parents went there, because their father is a king or whatever.
That's even cooler, though, I think.
That
Yeah,
is.
I was just a kid from Missouri.
I was going to say, what legacy are we talking
That must
here,
have
John?
been really intimidating, I have to say.
It was very intimidating, of
especially
course.
as like a 19-year-old.
Well, of course, like
I mean, I can only imagine I'd be scared.
Well, and you got a scholarship for this?
yes, I
See?
got a scholarship.
I mean, even
so,
that in itself's huge.
yeah, it was neat. I mean, it's actually, but it taught me a lot, So so one day we're laying in the grass studying, and then Bill Clinton is jogging with his
No
secret.
way.
Well, he was president then.
Oh.
So he has his entire motorcade and Secret Service, and we're all, how college students are, laying in the grass on a spring morning.
Huh.
Like, oh, there's Bill Clinton.
Generally, this pasty white guy, all pink, and he was the most powerful man in the world, going for a run from, because we're only a couple miles from the White House.
It's kind of inspiring, though.
It was because he was a country boy too.
Yeah.
From Hope.
You're thinking I could either be him,
before.
or I could be one of the guys that's one of his security or something. At least.
Well, something like that. So, but the point is that from there, I tried to get onto Wall Street, like a lot of my friends did, and I eventually managed. It wasn't just an easy thing. Like they could just get in, and for me, it took a couple of years of temping to get in.
They're like, yeah, we know him.
Yep.
So eventually that happened. And then once I got there, I was like, this isn't all I thought it cracked up to be. I went to say AIG is like a financial company,
Big
but
one.
it's world headquarters there as one of those trainees for an executive track. And I was like, man, I could work my entire life here, and the stock share price goes up $1, and then tomorrow goes down $2. So what's it all about? So then I was like, I think I'm out of here. And I had a buddy in college like, why don't we make movies? And he was like,
Good transition.
right? Well, he's trying to escape his family. That was like this really wealthy family. His father was the ambassador of Nicaragua to France, and
Wow.
and so he was rebelling.
Wow.
But I took it seriously.
But he had his dad's money to start some of that.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Be friends.
Perfect. Yeah.
So
I would have too.
So we were talking, and I was like, and I had this idea in my head. That sounds like a really good idea. Why not? And there was a job in the New York Times for this outfit called Trauma Entertainment, which made the movie Toxic Avenger.
Oh.
Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
yeah. It's like
That's a cult following right
It
there.
is, and a lot of their films are cult films.
Yeah.
And they needed a guy who spoke Spanish to sell their films.
Stop it.
And so they hired me to sell movies, and that was my first job in the movie industry, which took me to California.
Gosh, what year was that then?
That was '97.
97. A lot
Yeah.
changing in L.A. around
Yeah, that's
97.
right.
Give it another 10 years and YouTube will be around.
Oh my God!
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Goodness,
Well,
yeah.
I got there just about when the
internet
dot-com
.com,
bubble
yeah,
was
Silicon
starting, right?
Valley was barely starting at the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nobody really kind of knew what that was all
Oh,
about.
so
what
did
it would
you-
be.
Did you
Yeah.
make the film with your buddy, or did you just end up working with this company? And
When I worked with the company, and James
Yeah.
Gunn, who eventually made Guardians of the
Yeah,
Galaxy,
he's now in
was there-
charge of
You gotta
well,
be
he
kidding,
was there
right?
2 years before me. We just barely missed each other.
Wow.
But a lot of people started out at Trauma.
Okay.
That was sort of Lloyd Kaufman, who was the president. That was his whole thing was
Yeah.
helping new people start in the industry. And he's
Okay.
just a very generous, wacky kind of guy.
That's cool, though.
But I went from a pinstripe suit to the next day I showed up at work in flip flops, and the president of the company has got his head in a box of videos. Well, frankly, I think they might have been porn videos. 'Cause
Yeah.
he's looking for kind of like women, scantily clad women for his
Okay.
next picture.
That's research.
Yes, it actually was.
Yeah,
Well, in
it
all
was,
seriousness,
yeah. It
for
would be,
him.
yeah.
He was numb to it, probably.
Anyway, very different environments, right? And so, but wound up in LA, and that was all good and everything. Worked on a lot of films. Worked in different places too. Miramax. I was there when Tarantino was making Kill Bill 1 and 2.
gosh.
And,
wow.
Cold Mountain was being made at the time, and
Good movie,
Curse.
too.
I mean, a lot of great movies are being made. Yeah. This is 2001, 2003.
Oh, big time.
Lots of before all the CGI takes over.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was just...
This was still when they would like actually go to a scene and do it, like Cold Mountain with Jack White and stuff.
What's funny is that nowadays you'll see people kind of returning to that. Like they're like, oh, I don't want the CGI look. I want to go back and do things in person.
Well, but now we're about to get to, text-generated video, like Nerfs and stuff like that. So we're right at the edge of something brand new. But in those days... when a budget would come through at Miramax and I'd see the budgets, like the effects budget come in, it'd be like hundreds of thousands of dollars for like just, a handful of shots.
Wow.
It was a big deal to do any effect shots back in those days.
Oh, yeah.
So it's changed. But anyway, it's like in Hollywood, I was like, and I kind of got there a little late. So I kind of aged out and I kind of decided I was going to do journalism, a way to bring together this Georgetown background, this Wall Street background, this media background, Hollywood background. And,
makes sense.
And then it brought me back to Missouri because Mizzou up in Columbia is actually a pretty good journalism school.
Very good
it's
school.
Like one of the almost number one in the country.
It's number one.
Yeah. It's number one.
That's why our TV stations do so well.
Yeah.
Well, there's another industry with a lot of changes.
Yeah.
But as part of my graduate work, I was doing for a master's degree. I got interested in, I wanted to report about my buddies, people I grew up with.
Right.
Because they're still working in the steel mill. There was a steel plant still there in Mansfield.
Gosh.
I would go back to town there and visit, and they looked older than me. I was like, they look rough, because they're having, they're living.
Yeah.
They're living life.
They're living the normal life that you think kids would have from Mansfield.
Exactly, So, and then I just started, since I was a photographer, I am a photographer. I was doing documentary photography and documentary filmmaking, and so I would just go around and just talk to people and hear
like people you knew already, whoever you could find.
Driving down the road, see a guy on the side of the road, and take out my camera and say, "Excuse me, could I make a portrait?"
I love that.
And
this is before TikTok and Instagram, where people just do this randomly all the time.
Oh yeah. Well, back then people would be like, I don't know, I'm not sure who this guy is.
I don't, in these areas, I don't think they had seen a guy with a camera, never been asked for a portrait, so they're pretty open.
True.
And sometimes I would just take pictures of scenes, things that like just life, I got
there's a lot of it around here. So
up in Northeast Wright County, there's a cemetery.
In Wright County, Beaver, Rogersville area, is that right?
Wright County over here, east. Same county we're talking about, in the very, very east, tippy-top, northeast corner. There's a little town called Embry, a spot on the road, and it's got a cemetery. And this is one picture I was thinking about when I was coming in here. Mm-hmm. And, it's a cemetery. And it's a guy's name written on a cinder block put in the ground. The guy's name is Shaw.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
That's that. I mean, it's a cinder block. Well, no, that's the tombstone. It's a cinder block.
It's a cinder block. Okay.
So it's like, wow, but some people have like some pretty,
basic
lives,
Yeah.
And that's what they got was for the entire lifetime of this guy. It was all kept off with a cinder block.
Right.
And that's kind of like
very
sometimes
poetic.
in a weird way, right?
It is, but I bet that guy had so many stories.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was probably so full of life, and people probably loved him, but he was basic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No doubt people loved him. But, just very simple living and maybe not a whole lot of money, but I'm sure there was laughing, and there was loving, and this guy had a whole life.
He probably had a conversation with somebody too that I don't want anything fancy on my
on my tombstone either.
Right, yeah, and he got
that's
it.
Very much
he did get it.
That's very Ozark too. I think.
Is.
A lot of people like that around here.
Cinder block is a tombstone. Don't spend any money on me.
I can't say I've never seen that.
You can't blame me.
I've never seen that
for not knowing that because I had to take care of the cameras. I meant the simple message on the tombstone.
Yeah.
The cinder block thing, I don't know. I've
never seen a cinder block.
I've never seen that before.
I brought a picture for you so you can see it. But
it's like, very easy to scratch into.
You'll have to send that to me so we can put it into the podcast. Like we'll put it on the screen.
Okay, sure. It's on. I'll do that. It's on
so was that during the times that you were already doing this and that just struck you, or did you get a lead on that to know where it was at, or just
drive around?
Really?
Just being observant.
Wow.
Of the life around. I was driving one time in Norwood, which is east here in Mansfield, east of Mansfield, and there was a fire. I was like, "I'll go check it out."
Oh yeah.
Went over there, and it was a family burning their couch.
Oh.
And it was all these
random.
Well, in a trailer park, and
that's how you got rid of that.
I've heard of couching, where you just go and take a couch somewhere, take pictures. But couch burning, okay.
Yeah, they were getting rid of it.
That's how you get rid of it.
And it was such an amazing scene because it was this whole family of like
black smoke and
large women,
all in
stripes.
Enough.
The couch had been through a lot.
Yeah. No, but what was interesting is, there was a beauty to it.
Right.
Sure.
These were,
Yeah.
in their own way, were beautiful women.
Yeah.
And they were standing there, and they told me their stories. Like there was some one of the ladies, younger, a little larger, she just met a man online, and she was all hopeful about meeting him,
man.
and but she hadn't had a lot of luck either with
Right.
online dating,
Right.
and so I called
She's
them
not alone.
the sirens of Norwood, and so it's just women looking, people loving. People living,
Yeah.
people
Sirens
hoping.
of Norwood.
People
And,
burning couches.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
but to answer your question, it's just driving around, you see stuff like that, and if
Yeah.
you're half paying attention, there's like a story there.
Well, that's the problem with most people these days is we're not paying attention to anything that goes on unless it's on our phone or our computer
Right.
or it's on our TV.
Which is funny because those are all
or-
stories on our computer and phones that we're usually looking at, but we don't pay attention to the stuff around us.
They're not making
Yeah.
their own stories is the problem.
True.
And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of one thing that just clicked in my head. I mean, this is why we started this whole entire show in the first place was because we wanted to turn some light bulbs on with
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
of what's available out there. Go pay attention.
There's a ton of great stories around here.
Yeah.
In the Ozarks.
Go make your own stories at any of these places that we tell you
Go
about.
talk to your family too.
Yeah.
I mean, your family. Go talk to that weird uncle you don't really talk to too much.
Because you thought he was
and be
weird?
like,
He's super cool.
maybe
actually.
he's
Could
probably
be.
still weird.
I think I'm one of those, actually. I'm an uncle that they're like, yeah, I don't know about him, but I got some great stories.
yeah.
So.
I mean that's
But that's the way the
Everywhere.
Ozarks is, though, too. We've got such a melting pot of people that have come here from
people that
all
live
over.
You
here.
do.
from
There
all
was-
over.
I mean,
Like your
you know,
parents, like you.
Yeah, I mean, my parents came here from out of state, and they just coincidentally wound up here. In
But
the
so
woods.
coincidentally, what brought them
Well,
here?
Especially
Because I love
Mansfield.
these. I love these stories.
how
right
people
here.
wind up here,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
and
my
sometimes it is wind up here.
it is such a random thing. So my dad was a GI, an American GI, U.S. Army. He was fighting in Nazi Germany, and he did his thing, and he was done.
Unreal.
He got out, got shot. I think got shot by
What branch
an
was he in?
Italian sniper. He was in the Army.
Your dad's
Okay,
a
yeah,
badass.
so he was-
He
Yeah,
was a badass.
he
He
was
got
a-
shot by a sniper.
Yeah.
And
he was
he
in
survived
it.
that. I got the watch he bought in Italy. But he was in Germany. He was a scout, infantry scout.
Oh, Jesus.
and
Gosh,
so
even worse.
he slid down. Him and a buddy were drinking one night up in in a forest and camping, scouting, and
Drinking.
well, they wound up like having to hold on to trees and slid down to the overnight. They wound up sliding to the bottom of the hill in the middle of the camp. German outfit had moved in
gosh.
overnight, and some guy hit my dad, on the side. Wake up, Fritz, and
Oh, my gosh.
and they had some basic German, and he just barely escaped, So
So he
I
actually escaped that?
they
So-
both did. Yeah,
The Germans just thought there were other German
They were
soldiers.
they thought they were
Did they
scouts.
just-
they
did they
hit
just
them-
let him go
let 'em-
then?
as far as I know, that's the only story I heard. Is
They didn't know who they were. It sounds like, and as a scout, you're not wearing like a uniform.
No,
I'm sure
God,
they
no.
knew who they were, though.
Yeah.
They probably didn't look like locals, or did they
I
try
don't
to
know
look
the
like
whole
locals?
thing. I don't know the whole details.
Oh,
Just
man,
that
I
they
love
woke
this
up in the
story.
middle of a
my gosh.
Germans, encampment that moved in, and they got away. So I don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of
terrible.
details of those times, but
Those
but-
guys don't tell too many stories.
No,
like
and he did, and he said, it was war. We killed people. You know, it was war. But afterwards, him and a buddy were meeting in Chicago. It was like, and my dad grew up in Indiana, didn't want to go back.
Right.
And but he liked Indiana, and this buddy Hank said, "Hey, the Ozarks are like Indiana. Go check it out." And that's how we wound up here.
It's not far off.
I've never actually
Yeah.
been to Indiana.
It's a lot like
Well,
here.
It is. It is.
I
Woods,
haven't
it's
really,
woodsy, right?
It's like the opposite of us. Just
Yeah,
like
like-
a book, and you just unfold it.
Interesting.
Missouri's here, and Ohio's still
Because
way
I've
over
never
here.
really been like on the northern side of the country, like around the Great Lakes, than the East Coast.
It's much better
I've
than
been
Illinois.
like Georgia, Florida, down there, but I haven't really gone in the northern parts.
Well, northern Indiana's kind of hills and whatnot, but you
Yeah.
get down southern's forest.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
kind of
that
similar
is
to
very,
Missouri.
Yeah,
So anyway, he moved to his new wife from this model he had because he wound up becoming a photographer out in L.A. and
he finds a model.
I was gonna say, isn't that kind of how
well,
you found
when he
your
finally
current wife?
when he passed, he had this big box of of headshots of women, glamour shots,
Uh-huh.
because I guess he was a photographer for actresses out
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And my mom tossed the entire box.
Oh, I was actually thinking that. Actually, I'm like, did your mom? Was she okay with that?
She was not
or-
okay, and I kind of now she
I
kind
would
of
have
regrets,
sold
and I do
those,
too.
yeah, like
Oh,
eBay or
man.
something.
But your dad
or-
sounds like he was the coolest dude
Yeah.
ever. I mean,
He had a pretty good life.
badass in World War II, and then he was a cowboy. He was a
Cowboy.
photographer for models. My gosh, man.
And then he's in
and
Mansfield,
for John
Missouri.
Wayne. He was John Wayne's
You knew John
photographer for a
Wayne,
while.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had some old pictures of John Wayne. I had his pocket knife when I was younger, but lost it, unfortunately. Anyway, he was an interesting guy, I guess, and so that's how we wound up in Missouri.
Okay.
And so I grew up
And
here.
he liked it here. after everything that happened? Did you guys like have
Yeah,
property
you
that you
liked it.
lived on? Like,
We-
did you have a ranch?
We bought
or-
some ranch. We
Yeah.
bought some property in Hartville where we raised beef.
Yeah,
and
it's
we
quiet
had
out there.
horses.
Did you
Oh my
know?
God,
Did you
yes.
know Glenn Sanders out there?
Oh gosh, probably not.
No, I didn't know.
Hartville, Missouri, old
But
cat
Glenn,
dairy
Glenn
farmer.
Sanders is a friend of ours. He grew up in there out near Hartville.
It's the start of his
as a
pitch
dairy-
about himself. Is he's from a
dairy
dairy farm in from Hartville, Missouri. But,
And he's about the same age, a little younger maybe, but
A lot of everybody I've met from Hartville, which is
Interesting.
like 3 people, are all great people. So
Yeah,
that
I
includes
agree.
you now
It's
too.
a small
so.
place.
Right, it is. And so you guys had this growing up out and you were basically working on a working farm at that point with animals and things like that growing
Yeah,
up.
I mean, there was no dairy or anything like that, but yeah, raising animals. Summers were spent baling hay. We'd all go out and pick up the rocks together.
Oh,
We'd
the
all
worst.
go. We'd go.
The worst
we
job.
pick up the limbs so the bale wouldn't catch in the baler.
Oh, yeah.
and we make the square bales and then in the winter we would cut timber, post, and we had like a band to go around this sort of like spinning wheel in a tractor, a farm all tractor, and we would cut post and we take the post to the mill, sawmill. It was a whole different. We had a cast iron stove that we put.
wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was all.
It was way.
Man, you
fun.
guys were living, man.
We had a tub of, for heating the water.
Sure.
We'd all stand under the tub and the water come down after it got hot. in the
Sounds like my
afternoon.
wife's experience
so
growing
cool.
up.
Yeah, that's the way. And then, 20 years later, I was in New York City, going out, like having a great time.
Presidents
going
were
to the
jogging
bars.
by.
Well, that's crazy because that's how long ago was that? I mean, when you were a kid growing up, when
Well,
did you leave
I'm Gen
that life?
I'm Gen X.
Right.
So, Gen X, so 70s. I grew up in the 70s.
Right.
But my generation, Gen X, we're that bridge generation between pre-digital, analog. We remember an analog world with party lines and all that.
But you go as far as to you had to heat your own water with
And pull-
wood.
Yeah, and
you
pull
know.
the water out of a well.
Right.
So people were still doing
That's
that.
not long ago though. And that's
no.
what
People still do that around
And
here.
na- and
That's
now-
true.
People
They
still
do
live that
actually.
way.
You're right.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
and
you're
now,
right.
I'm not talking just Amish people.
No,
either.
you're right.
It's just in general.
But that is what came to mind first.
But
yeah.
it's kind of a choice now. I mean, then you're kind of like off,
It
you're
is.
kind of off the gridding. You're making
Well,
a lifestyle
if
that
choice.
is funny
You're
too
making-
because
yeah,
people are like,
because-
I'm going back to that.
Right.
Yeah, because you can get solar panels and batteries.
I'm
and all
done
that
with
stuff.
all this
Yeah.
running water.
I don't want clean
And,
stuff.
and during my travels and photography work, I have met people who have gone back to that same area
Sure.
to do this.
Wow.
Precisely that, to live the way we used to live in the 70s.
Yeah.
Some of them are hiding out.
I can see that.
I mean, they really are, frankly.
Probably heard a lot of stories in that case. If they were
I
going
have.
back to that, there's a reason.
Well,
John's a
there's so
story.
many-
John's a story keeper,
There's so many
as well as a
stories.
storyteller. I mean, he
That's-
just has a big.
Yeah.
Let's get
list of
into them then. Yeah, man.
Well, I was driving down the road on Highway 95 near Mountain Grove one time, and it's a curvy road that connects Mountain Grove with Lynchburg up north, with basically I-44.
yeah.
And it goes through the Mark Twain Forest, or some forest, some part of it over there. Anyway, coming around a corner, and out of nowhere, there's like this tower, like an old, like you find on
Fire
an old
tower.
military
Oh,
fort.
I remember
Yeah.
this story. This is an awesome
So
story.
the fire
Yeah.
tower, basically.
Well, no, more like the tower. The watch guard tower is going into a fort.
So like
And that's what it
like
was.
Lord of the Rings, sort of like tower. Sort
Okay,
of.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking something more metal. This is more ominous. Like a
No, this is like where you would
Wood.
put. This is where we put guards up
Oh,
with,
wow.
with
Archers and
Palisades.
shit. Oh, my
and,
God.
Yeah, Palisades,
all
yeah.
that stuff. Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. Some Dell executive went in there and bought himself a whole area and built a town
Holy smokes.
for his family, for him and his family. And he's like, well, my kids are successful and are doing whatever. I guess they're working professionals. But when things go south, they're going to want to come home. And I built us a town here. And they had a whole town. They had streets in there. I was traveling.
And it
with some
wasn't
friends.
like electrified or anything. Was this all, or was it electrified and all that?
I don't know. I don't remember.
They wouldn't let you in?
No, we went in. We drank. We had drinks and had
I wanna know where
beers
this
and the
is
whole
at.
thing. And with these
We
people,
gotta go.
We do. Yeah.
and but yeah, they had decided that they were checking out society, and they're
Yeah.
building up a fort. And this was before the pandemic, so
Right. They're just preppers.
now, yeah, basically, I
Pretty
suppose
much.
now.
I'd say
that's
extreme
pretty
preppers.
hardcore
Extreme
prepper.
preppers.
Yeah.
I need to make I need to revisit them again and see what they did with the pandemic and see if the kids came back.
Dude, I want to go with you. Let us go with you.
Okay.
Let us go with you. I'd love to see that.
I mean, talk to him first because I want to bring a camera.
Yeah.
And record some of this stuff.
We just won't tell anybody where it is. No, we know. We're
Fair
cool.
enough. Fair
Oh my
enough.
God.
No GPS coordinates. Yeah. I got
Yes.
this.
Well, I mean, they put themselves. They put
How
a
did you
tower
meet
on
these? How did you meet these people first of all?
Well, you saw the tower on the road.
So you just saw the tower and you're like,
Yeah.
checking
This
it
is
out.
what you'll learn about John is that he will see something, he will stop, and he will just talk to them.
It's the journalism.
That's the journalism.
Yeah.
That's
You
the
just have
journalist.
that gumption
And
to go
he has
do it.
such a nice way and demeanor about him. It's like, how can you not want to
That's
talk
true.
to him about stuff?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Right.
Well, thank you.
If you approach
but,
it-
but it hasn't always been that way. No,
I believe that.
On another trip, driving down the road, apparently I must have drove near some meth labs or something.
Oh,
Because it's a pretty funny story actually. So I had a friend of mine driving.
starts with meth lads and it's funny.
Well, it's funny because so I had a driver. The driver is driving the car. I'm standing on the hood of the car with a camera filming, and then all of a sudden these four-wheelers come around us, surrounding us.
Whoa.
And the first question is, "What are you doing?"
Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
I mean, if a person's standing on a car with a camera, I think it's pretty obvious. But
Yeah.
whatever.
It's like a Mad Max sort of situation.
Well, it was because there's something going on there that they would not want anybody to see. And I said, well, the camera's pointed down the road, not on the side of the field, so you guys can relax.
Yeah.
Sure.
What are you doing? And just filming down the road. So, and they went away, and that was that.
Yeah.
But
You thought they went away.
it's probably not.
But they're probably somewhere watching you. Yeah.
But kind of like the whole winter's bone thing,
Yeah.
in some of these parts of the woods, there are things going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I still remember
so-
that. That was my dad. He was when we were doing church work when I was younger, he would go out to these places and visit people that weren't coming to the congregation. And I remember one time going down out into the woods, down basically a holler, just way down there. I remember him taking his tie and his jacket off, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't want to look like an FBI or a government agent here because you
Smart.
don't know what people are assuming you're going to be when you walk up."
Oh, I could see that.
So
I'll tell
I
you
was
another
like,
story.
you know what? That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That place that I lived in Hartville, no one has lived there since. And I went back a few years ago. I won't tell you exactly where it's at because I don't want anybody getting hurt.
Yeah.
But I went back a few years ago and helped myself to an entrance. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now the road that goes into it is overgrown now with brush. So you have to know where it's at. So anyway, I knew, and I went in and I went back, and there's a field in there, and I was standing in the middle of the field, and it didn't take more than 10 minutes before there were people there. Well, first of all, I was standing in the field and I hear gunshots, right?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, exactly. And so I checked myself for blood.
Which is not uncommon.
Sure.
well,
yeah.
except
But when you're just out there,
yeah,
all of a sudden.
Well, the thing is, there was a brand new barn back in the property, about a quarter mile in,
Oh.
and power running to it.
Okay.
And so I'm standing out in the middle of the field and I hear the gunshots, and so I check for blood. I feel a little warm, but it's not blood. It's just like, adrenaline.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, but I'm exposed. I'm in the middle of a field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't run because I'll be
True.
shot.
Yeah.
I could crawl.
Best thing you
maybe.
do is lay down.
Well, I could.
Yeah.
I could. Or, since I wasn't shot and I was sure of it,
Yeah.
I just put my hands up and I was like, hey, no harm, no foul.
Oh, it was that close.
Yeah. Oh, I saw them. There's a couple guys up there, that were, that took the shots at me.
Oh my God.
And so I put my hands up. I turned around and I was like, hey, I'm just visiting. I grew up here. This is where my dad taught me to ride a bicycle.
Oh
I'm
my
just
God.
reminiscing. I got no business here, I know. And he's like, well, it's insurance and all that. Like, whatever.
Insurance. let me shoot at you, and then insurance.
Yeah, you might fall in a sinkhole or something.
Here, let me shoot at you first.
It is amazing,
That's what my insurance guy told me to do.
Shoot them so they
man.
can't fall in the sinkhole.
The first one's just a warning shot.
So people can be pretty touchy.
Yeah.
They can't.
Ozarkers, Ozarkians.
Yeah.
I feel like I just coined that phrase now. We're going to make it a thing.
It is.
Ozarkians?
Yeah, it is.
I'm not sure if it's Ozarkers or what. But anyway, they are definitely a rowdy, independent bunch that don't like people sticking their noses in their business. And that's an old thing all the way back to the ancestors who settled here, right?
Yes.
They came
Yeah.
in from Appalachia. They came in from Ireland and Scottish and all
Right.
that.
But nobody likes anybody walking on their property,
That's
and
true.
that's what and
Yeah.
I used to not, you don't really think about it when you live in the city. I mean,
Yeah,
or
'cause
in
you
a
just have a quarter
subdivision or
acre.
something. I mean,
It's
people, there's people everywhere anyways, right? If you have a quarter acre, someone walks through your yard, you're no big.
Oh,
no
no,
big
I'd
deal.
be really mad, but yeah, I get it.
Well, if you take care of
take
your
a shot.
Well, some people do get pissed off.
My
about
yard's
that, I guess,
yard's
so.
fenced in, so they'd have to make an effort.
Now that would be that's unacceptable though, right? But,
Right, yeah.
But down at my house, I have certain things that grow that are legal. Sorry, I should say that. But there's mushrooms and stuff down at our house, and last year I think I ran off at least 6 people, groups of 2.
morel? Were they looking
Yeah,
for
they would
morel?
always come down and look for morels, and I'm like. One guy, I'm sitting there, and I just ran off somebody else, and I'm sitting there, and I have my 9mm on me, and because I never know who these guys are, and
Sure, yeah.
I hear these doors shut, and I'm like, somebody's parked up there up the hill. And it's something you can't see where they park, but it's a spot where the highway has an inlet. And I'm sitting down there on my Polaris Ranger just waiting. And I'm like, I know they're coming over this hill any second now. And they took about 5 minutes, but they come right up to the tip of this hill, and they've got like their big old gallon jug of sweet tea for the day, and they've got like their backpack full of food. So they were like making a day of it, and they're hiking poles and all that stuff. And I'm like, hey guys, what's going on? And they're like, acting like they didn't see me, and I'm like, you guys have to see this bright red Polaris Ranger I'm sitting on. And I said, you guys are just in the wrong spot, basically. And they were acting like they didn't know somebody owned the property. And I'm like, guys, you're right next to the highway. You're not too far from Ozark. Did you think somebody didn't own this big chunk of property when there's a house right there that you can see? Yeah. And they're like, oh, we've been here before. And I'm like, oh, cool. You've been trespassing for years. And I've never caught you. Wow. Good. I'm glad I caught you today then. So I kind of get that. I mean, I wasn't going to shoot at anybody, but unless they were armed or something, that's a little different.
Yeah.
But I get it. But did they own the property that you guys used to own?
Don't know. I mean,
did your parents sell that property at some point?
We
and move
did.
Away? Okay.
We did. And looking at the records, I mean, there's probably some person or outfit out of Branson, but it hasn't been developed.
It's probably the College of the Ozarks. We were talking about that in our last episode.
Ken Coleman's fault.
It was just I just thought it was so I live close to the art museum here, and if you recall, a couple of years ago they had a bunch of Andy Warhol stolen.
Oh man, yeah.
Never found.
Tell us you have a story about this.
Well, I'm just saying, if the museum had the same security this abandoned ranch did, the Andy Warhols would still be there.
And it is interesting because I did hear a theory of how it happened, and it was literally someone took mulch and stuck it where the door shuts, where the lock is, and left the door open for the nighttime.
No secondary.
Came back, had a ladder
system.
and all sorts of stuff with them, and just spent their night in the art museum just staking Andy Warhol.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think also that the alarm system had been like turned off or something. It had been annoying people, and it was. I don't remember all the details, but
it sounds like they probably had some security training and probably security upgrade.
It was well orchestrated.
Because I know my house.
Times.
It's just a simple home security system. It tells me when the door's left open.
Yeah.
So I mean, they should have been able to catch.
I'm going to sound real redneck right now, but I am my security system.
Well,
sorry.
There you go.
I had to say it. Speaking of all these
sometimes you are when you're living out in the country, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that really is true.
It really is. People come off the highway and think I'm a mechanic because I have a barn and stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't fix cars, but I can call you a tow truck. I'm good at that. But then so you go off to school, you come back to Missouri. So when you were on your travels, because we were talking about this earlier, this is why we started the show, and I say this almost every week because it leads into it, of you going off from Hartville, Missouri to Georgetown. You're seeing Bill Clinton, you're doing all this stuff. Then you go to L.A.
Yeah.
And you go to these big towns, New York and L.A. and all this stuff. What brought you back to Springfield?
Let me interject. We have a 5-minute warning here.
5 minute
Okay,
warning.
I still have family here. So that's good. So this is one of those rare situations where I was able to come home for career things and be near family. So that's kind of nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's kind of nice. Yeah.
Now, it's kind of nice also to be able to bring back what you've learned.
Yeah.
Now, that's not always welcomed, I know.
But that's huge, though.
But I think it is
a much
important.
different perspective than everybody else, especially from Hartville.
Well, we talk about a brain drain around here, too. Like, a lot of people get educated and then they leave to go somewhere else.
I mean, but it goes, it's both things. I've heard people say to my face that, well, it sounds like you're pretty flighty. You just kind of like flitted around and then you wasn't stable. But I look at the other way. It's like these are like valuable insights and skills and could be useful around here, right?
Well, and I tell everybody, if you want to learn more, and I hear Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V talks about this a lot, where you either, after high school, you should make a decision to either go to college if your parents are going to pay for it. If they're not, see if they'll pay for you to go travel for 3 to 6 months overseas and just travel, or not even overseas, just travel.
Just get that experience.
Because you do learn a lot on traveling alone. That it's almost like a survival instinct that gets hyper aware whenever you get to go to a place like New York and you're starting all over. Most people, it would eat you up and spit you out.
Well, and then you get exposed to other types of thinking and other cultures and other things you're not used to around here.
Going back to the whole GI thing with my dad, but also in general, and many other nations do it. And it wouldn't be a bad idea if we did, in my opinion, is national service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, for a year or two, I mean, lots of countries do it, but it forces
And
people.
doesn't have to be military.
Doesn't have to be military.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
But-
you think infrastructure. I mean, that would be a great thing.
yeah.
Plus, you could learn a trade while you're doing
Well,
it.
the civilian-
you could be taught how to do, something you could do in the private sector once you're done.
Well, and half the stuff that we're going to be doing here soon, which is outdoor stuff, it wouldn't be available had it not been for Civilian Conservation Corps back in the
That's
day,
right,
whenever
yeah.
that was created, and they created all these trails in Mark Twain National Forest, and all these places that were created were to put people back to work.
Yeah.
And I think that if that were to keep happening, we wouldn't be so behind in our infrastructure. We wouldn't be
Correct,
so behind in a lot of things.
And we also wouldn't have a lot of the divisiveness we have today.
Absolutely.
that is very
a
true.
lot-
It's
a lot
a
of-
unifying experience.
Oh, it's amazing. Like, I can find the
Yeah.
most working class person around, and I mean that with in admiration.
Yeah.
Because working class people are my people. That's where I come from.
Yeah.
And if they have traveled or if they did the service and got to go overseas, they tend to be just as worldly and literate and open-minded, regardless of political persuasion, as someone who went to college.
Right.
Does not matter.
I agree.
And it's
Makes
just
sense.
a good thing.
Well, and another thing is too, when you get to the point where, you're at like this school where you're having all these prestigious people you go to school with, you're seeing Bill Clinton run through it. That's a big deal in itself. But then if you go to the military, or if you go into even just further on down to say regular folks, sports, it breaks it down to where it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you came from. But once you get in that same team environment with a bunch of other people that all have to do the same thing, the same way, it brings everybody back to a point where I'm just like you.
Yeah.
You get rid of all of those stupid things that keep us apart, which is I'm better than you for this reason.
Yep.
Or I'm a better thinker because of this reason, because of my parents, or something to that effect, which is not inherent. And to me, that's where we need to get back to that stuff, just like you're thinking. I mean, if we got back to that, where even if they forced you just to be on a team of some kind, I mean, I'm about ready to force my kid to be on a team because he stopped playing because he didn't like certain things about it that I couldn't argue with. But to the point of everybody needs to learn that team environment is something we're all here because we need to help each other anyways.
Yeah.
And if someone's in need and they need help, we need to be the person who steps up to do that. But you learn that a lot faster when you're in a team environment or you're in the military where you're shoved into this together. You have to look out for each other, and that's the basics of why we're here.
And if you don't do your
place.
job, then the whole team fails.
And then someone might get
Well,
hurt too.
it's Team America now, and we all need to be
No,
together.
we need to be Team Planet, Team
Team
Humanity.
Planet, sure.
We need to be.
But if you got a bunch,
Let's start with America.
but since we here in the Ozarks, we're known for being kind of rapscabble, independent, all that.
But it's funny
it's
because
our tendency. We have to work against that and come back together.
Yes.
Which
Well,
we
it's
was
funny,
before.
but I mean, I know growing up in the Ozarks, if something happens, everybody will drop whatever they're doing. They'll come and help out.
Right.
Like, for example, I remember one time a tree blew over and crossed the road. I went down with a chainsaw, and about 20 other people showed up, and we just took care of it before the city could get there.
And nobody says
Nice.
a word.
Yeah,
You're
nope.
just like, good job.
We just do it, and
See
we're
ya.
done.
Yep.
And
I hope that's something that resonates with people and what keeps them here, because we do have to wrap up, and that really sucks because we could talk forever about all this stuff.
Yeah, and we'll talk more.
We need and
will.
you're going to come back. You're going to be a part of the show, but hearing certain things that we hear from people that have moved here from other places or came back, it kind of usually comes back to how friendly people are. And how willing they are to help others and things like that I feel like it's not lost in every city, but I think that we're such a big metropolitan area, but we have a huge spread around that metropolitan area that people want that. They like their subdivision, but they want land. They like being around people, but they don't really like being around people. But they do want to help each other out regardless, and that's what we're missing in our society. I think it's being lost. I don't think it's lost yet. I think that it's starting to be lost. But once AI sets in, we're all done anyways.
Well, then,
that's what we got.
then we're going to have to really work at connecting. Yeah.
Yes. And that's where it really boils down. So, so John, do you have anything you want to talk about as far as, what we have coming out? I guess we could preface with what is the goal of what, what we're trying to do with exploring the Ozarks, and you're kindred spirit to that. That's why David wants you to be a part of this, and I would put my blessing on that as well. Now that we've interviewed you, I'm just kidding.
I passed.
But
Yay!
but
You get to volunteer and help us out.
yeah, volunteer is the key word. Unless we start getting Patreon.
Yes.
But
Think about it.
what's your goal with that? I mean, tell everybody what your goal is with this.
In 30 seconds or less.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the idea always behind documentary photography, filmmaking in general, is to give people a voice and to hear from people that you've never heard from before, and to realize that we have a lot more in common than we have different.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
Dude, that's exactly why we're doing this.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. And on that note, we will go ahead and we'll don't want to, but we're going to end the show right now. Thank you so much for being here, John.
Thanks. It's
Delatorre.
great.
Yeah.
Do it again.
You're going to hear a lot more from John coming up in the future. Right now, we've got so many things scheduled to go out that we're I mean, right now we're gonna tell on ourselves a little bit. It's late March right now when we film this, so we'll see when this comes out.
This will be late May.
But we're trying to cram out as many of these as we can because we want to focus more on stuff like this where we can tell stories and we can get back to what's in the Ozarks, and that's where we're going to expand into. So, John, thank you for being a part of that. We really, really appreciate that.
I appreciate the platform to get these stories out.
Yeah, and
And
we're
these
going
people.
to, David will make you look good. We'll knock it out of the park for you. But
I'll do my
again,
best.
thank you so much for being here, John, and we'll keep watching you and keep exploring the Ozarks.
You're here.
Thanks again for listening to Exploring the Ozarks. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our social media channels to help us keep exploring the stories of the Ozarks. If you're looking for more ways to support our show, we have sponsorships for businesses and Patreon for individual supporters. Check the links in the description for more details. Thanks for your support, and keep exploring the Ozarks.